What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel and episode 2 of Island 12. Now we're going to start off today's episode with a little bit of a recap of what happened in the previous last week, just in case you forgot or you didn't actually get around to watching last week's episode yet. What you're seeing on screen is the slow-mo footage, the kind of cinematic footage from the end of last week's build. So you guys are caught up on pretty much what we did in the last episode. So if you're new to the series, this is a brand new series for me for this year. I'm planning to run this as a year-long series. I'm not rushing anything. I'm not putting too much work on my plate because I want to actually get this project finished by the end of the year. So this project is having concept art done as well by myself. I am drawing up concept art each week for you guys to watch on a separate video, and then the day after that is when these videos come out. So this was last week's. This is what we got done last week, and I'm very excited to start working on this week's. So if you watched the concept art video that went up on the channel yesterday, you'll pretty much know what we're doing in today's episode. And I did actually go into a lot of detail in yesterday's video about the lore of this island. Obviously this is the Island 12, the name of the series. This is the main island, the defensive island, like we explained in last week's episode as well. But I did go into a lot of lore surrounding who lives on this island, how this island was made, all of that kind of stuff in the concept art video. We will touch on that a little bit in today's episode, but we're probably going to keep a lot of the lore separated into the concept videos. If you want all of the details about the lore, then that's going to be found in the concept videos. And then if you just want the basics and you're not really interested in the lore, you want to see more about the building, then obviously that's going to be in this video, because I know that not everyone is interested in the lore side of things. So if you really are interested in that and you want to know all of that kind of juicy details and really get a feel for the series and everything that's going on with it, then the concept video is going to be perfect for you. So what we're building today is the castle that is on Island 12. Now, obviously, in the last episode, we built that huge staircase where all the guests are going to be able to walk up and into the park. So that is the staircase that they're going to use to get in. Obviously, that is, like I said in last week's episode, the only way in and the only way out of this valley. And this valley is where the islands are. This is Island 12, which we're building today. And this is one of the main defenses to keep the valley safe. So that is why this castle is here. It was built here on purpose to help defend everyone that lives in the valley, basically, from any attacking forces that decide that they want to come take a piece of the pie. Now, obviously, there is loads and loads of backstory and all that stuff to do with who's attacking, why they would be attacking, why this was actually built, who this was built by. That's going to be coming up in future episodes. But for now, we're just going to go with this is a castle to help defend this island, because that is pretty much what it is. Now, obviously, working with concept art, which I've actually produced myself, you would think it would be easier to come up with ways of building this kind of stuff, but even though it's nice to do concept art and it's really nice and helpful to have something to follow as kind of like a step-by-step guide of what you're going to be building. So basically, I pretty much drew up everything that I built in today's episode in my concept art. So I knew what I was building, but obviously this is Planet Coaster, so you have to find ways of actually building this stuff, which is kind of interesting. It's kind of fun. It's challenging. I wouldn't say it was easy. Especially with me, I like to kind of draw things that maybe are a little bit difficult to kind of build. But I like that. I like that it pushes me further with my building skills and with my art skills as well with the concept art. So it's pretty interesting to just kind of scribble down an idea that's in your head on a piece of paper, publish that to everyone on the channel and say this is what we're going to be building, and then have to actually build that, because if I fail to build that, people are going to know what the original aim of the build was, if that kind of makes sense. Like, everyone's seen the concept art already, they know what this is supposed to be, so if I do a really bad job of building it in Planet Coaster, people are going to notice, which is nice because that drives me to actually put more time, more effort into my build. Not that I wasn't doing that anyway, but it's just kind of a really nice driving force as well for this series, which is great. And having the schedule as well for uploading and everything like that is going to be really helpful. But yeah, pretty much everything I want to do for this series, I want to do to the best of my ability. Obviously, I want to have as much detail as I can, but I've got to kind of balance that because I don't want to go to the extremes of having unnecessary detail that's going to bog down the running of the game. I don't want to get to a point where I'm 3/4 of the way through the series and then the game file is just way too laggy to even load up or build anything in. That's gonna be you know, it's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be a struggle that may occur. I'm hoping it doesn't. Hopefully my PC can handle this, but at the end of the day, it's down to Planet Coaster, how Planet Coaster runs. I've never had that problem before personally. I've never had a park that's got to the point where I can't run it. But the only park I've really put that much pieces into was probably Hogwarts, and that was always okay. So I'm kind of hoping that it's going to be fine, but we'll have to wait and see on that one. But yeah, this castle is really interesting because I've never kind of built anything like this before in Planet Coaster. So this is kind of a 3-tiered castle. Obviously what you're seeing right now is me building the first tier, but there's 3 tiers of this castle, and this castle is going to be kind of like bolted down into the island itself. So yeah, this took me a long time to build. As you can see, this castle is built basically piece by piece. I didn't want to use the standard pieces in the game because even though we have circular walls, brick walls for castles and stuff, they're actually really small, and the biggest circle you can make is probably about 1/3 of the size of the one that I needed. Plus the one that I drew up in the concept art was a like big, thick brick by brick kind of build. So that's pretty much what I decided to use. Obviously this is a new brick piece that came in the adventure pack. Thank you to Mert, by the way, he knows who he is. He actually bought my adventure pack DLC for me, kindly sent it to me over on Steam over the holidays, which was really unexpected, but thank you very much to him. I do appreciate it. So yeah, this is a piece from the new adventure pack. If you don't have the adventure pack, I would highly recommend looking into getting it. It's probably the best DLC pack we've had so far, paid DLC pack. The amount of stuff that's in there and the usefulness of a lot of the stuff is just insanely amazing. Like I'd heard good stuff about it over the holidays, but until I actually got into it and had a look at some of the pieces, I was very surprised and happy to see them, because those pieces are going to help me with this park. So yeah, really good. So yeah, as you can see, those are the kind of supporting structures right there that I was talking about a little bit ago. So because this is such a huge castle, and it's all made out of brick, I wanted to kind of have something that establishes its size. Now obviously if this was built in real life, this would be much bigger, but obviously limitations with the game. I can't go super duper high because of the skybox in the game. Obviously this is lifted off the ground quite a fair bit as well. So if this was built straight on the ground, I probably could have made this castle bigger, but because it's lifted off quite a fair bit on top of this island, I had to make it a little bit smaller. So to kind of make this castle seem bigger, I wanted to have those massive supports that are like clamping it down into the island itself to make it look more sturdy, to make it look like it needs that kind of support. Obviously this is made of brick as well. I'm not too sure whether this would actually be something that could be built in real life. I'm not sure what the kind of restraints are with brick and like with weight of like how heavy a castle can be before it like destroys itself under its own weight, if that makes sense. There is some pretty big castles in real life, but I think this one would be a lot bigger than all of them, seen as in the lore that I wrote, this castle has 3 tiers and 150 floors. So you can only imagine how big this castle would actually be in real life if this was actually right there in front of you. This is a pretty big castle, a massive defensive structure, one that was built, in fact, to hold the armies of all 12 of the races in the valley. So if ever there was an attacking force, all of the armies from all 12 islands would come to this castle and they would all fit inside it. That's why it's so big, so huge. It was just built basically ready for any attacking forces that would come and try and do whatever they needed to do here. So as you can see, we're pretty much done right there with the first tier of this castle. Like I said, there is 2 more tiers to come. So I love this castle. I love this castle from the concept art that I built, which is really good because actually liking something you built is a really good driving force. So this is something that I drew up in the concept art, and I just loved it from the first bit of the drawing that I did. It was just one of those things where I just kind of like fell in love with it, I guess. And then to actually see this come together itself in Planet Coaster as well, like before my eyes, this piece of building was just kind of like rising from this island, and it was really nice to see, and it just kept me building and building and building. I think this castle itself took me about 5 hours to complete. Maybe it might have been 4 hours, but I did it all in one sitting. This castle was done all in one go, from the first brick to the last brick that went into this. It was one sitting, because I just couldn't leave without finishing this, because sometimes you get halfway through a building or halfway through a build, and you'll be on a roll with it, and then you'll go to sleep and you'll wake up the next day. Maybe you won't work on the next day, you'll work on it the day after, and you come back to it and you're not in that groove anymore. You kind of lost the momentum of the build, and I didn't want to do that. I wanted to make sure I finished this, and I was pretty tired by the end of this build session, but it was definitely worth it, because at the end of the day, what I ended up with was something I was really happy with, and I think it resembled the concept art pretty well, and that is the main aim, to kind of turn what I've drawn into something that people can actually come and explore themselves, which is going to be great. That's one thing I'm really excited for, is obviously we got the lore and the backstory for all of this kind of stuff coming up. In future episodes, we're going to kind of be telling a story about why everything is here, who lives here, and all that kind of stuff. So that's one really nice thing that I love about this series so far. But the other thing is actually getting people to be able to load this save file once it's done, and have people react and find little hidden objects that I've hidden around the map, because I'm not showing everything. There are little bits of build that I'm keeping out of the videos, not because they're secret or anything like that, just because it's just extra detail that doesn't need to go into a video. All the time there's always some little pieces that get left out, so it's going to be nice to have people go in and discover them and find them for themselves and all that kind of good stuff. So that's going to be fun, because the last park I actually released on the workshop was Hogwarts, I think. I've obviously released coasters and little bits of builds here and there, but it's not been a full park. Hogwarts has kind of been my only park I've actually finished. Previous to this one, hopefully this one will be finished. I do plan to finish it. So yeah, it's going to be really nice to get people in and see people's reactions, or hear people's reactions when they get in touch with me and talk to me about it. So the hardest part, I would say, about building this castle is actually keeping a circle. I did it all freehand, or I guess you call it freehand. I just did it to eye. I didn't set down like a circle to follow or anything like that, like I normally would do, because I wanted to make it feel rustic. I didn't want it to be a perfect circle, because I don't think it would have been a perfect circle. It would have been handmade, obviously, with technology, probably not as great as what we have today to make circles. I don't know, I feel like this would have been built pretty quickly and rushed a little bit back when this castle was constructed. So I didn't want to make it perfectly circle, but that obviously brings up problems with making the roof in and trying to get everything to fit together properly. So yeah, putting these roofs together was a little bit of a pain because of the uneven circles that we had going on. But once I got that problem fixed, it really worked out in the end. And to be honest, you can't actually tell that this is like really not actually a proper cylinder once it's complete, because obviously the colors just make it blend so well, and it just looks like a perfectly round building at the end of the day. Like, it's not as wonky as I expected it to come out as. But I guess that was a blessing, because looking at it once it is complete, it does look a lot better this way than how I kind of intended it to be, a little bit shabby. But it looks really nice, it looks pristine, and it looks like a castle that could hold the armies that it's supposed to hold. So yeah, I'm really happy with the way that this one turned out. If you can't tell from me keep going on about it in this video, I would say actually that this is probably one of my proudest builds. It's not the most detailed, it's not the highest skill one to make, I would say. The one I did in the Halloween park, the haunted house, was probably my best actual build when it comes to detail and stuff, but this one I just feel has something to it that I just like over all of my other buildings I've ever made in this game. I don't know, I guess it's because it fits so well with the rest of the build that we did last week, maybe. I don't know what it is, but I just love this castle so much. So it's going to be nice to see if I can top that with more builds in this park coming up for different islands and stuff in the future. But yeah, this is going to be a two-part build, by the way, if I didn't mention already. Next week we'll be finishing off the rest of the details on the island itself. But today's episode is just the castle. So in next week's episode we will be talking more about the lore of this island and all of that kind of stuff. If you can't wait to find out the lore of this island, like I mentioned, you can go watch the concept art from yesterday. If you haven't done so already, I did explain pretty much all the lore to do with this island, but today I wanted to focus more on the build itself, and then in next week's episode where we do the little smaller details, we'll go over that lore again for anyone that's interested in it or didn't catch it in the concept video. So as you can see now, we're pretty much done with the top of this tower. There's one more thing that goes into the top of this tower in today's episode. So one thing I found out while building this is that there's two different height settings for Planet Coaster. There's a top height for terrain. Like, the highest point you can go for terrain is actually a lot lower than you can go with physical items. So you can build way higher than you can with terrain. So this little like shard that I put here was the cap for terrain in this map. I couldn't go any higher with the terrain, but I could build higher than this with actual items, which was really weird. I didn't really understand that, but yeah, I didn't even know that was a thing until I started building the top of this tower. But we're getting pretty darn close to the end of today's video. I do apologize, there is no slow-mo footage. I actually lost the slow-mo footage for today's video. It got corrupted. I do apologize, it's the first issue with this series. I will try and make sure that doesn't happen again in the future, but that is pretty much it for today's episode. So thank you very much for watching. I do appreciate it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please remember to leave a like. Feel free to subscribe. Let me know what you're thinking about this series so far in the comment section. And of course, I will see you guys next week for another concept art and then another build where we will finish off Island 12. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.